Well, but a Class C club covers the whole thing, doesn't it? If you have a Class C license, can you differentiate?
And you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Powell, that out of business, I would lose on today, and that's the reason I've selected this time.
Under the current ordinances, our unit is ineffective in enforcement of alcohol beverage violations. The question then is, how is the proposed ordinance going to affect the enforcement activities of the vice detail? The present status of the enforcement posture by our unit must first be understood.
This may not look like it does in the movies, but this could very well be what World War III is all about. Command posts, reshuffling manpower and energy. Tinker Air Force Base received a message early Monday morning that said to put Operation Depot Surge into effect. About 500 people began working around the clock to find out how efficient the system could be in case of war. It may not look glamorous, but at Tinker the war will be fought by civilians, overhauling engine parts and planes and returning them to service. One shortfall people find to U.S. military preparedness is outdated equipment. B-52s are old model aircraft, and many of the planes still in service are more than 20 years old. But in war, you fight with what you have, and here the effort will be to make sure that what we have can do the job. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4 at Tinker Air Force Base.
Headquarters has been declared a national land site by. They will gain more. I've had quite a few women in decision making with an interpreter to interpret what we have, because we have very few women, but we are waiting. Most of them have investigated some of these diffusing comments that were really red herrings that have been attached to it. And they have learned that they will gain more from the ERA than without it. Because the Equal Rights Amendment is not a movement. It is a legal issue under the law, and the magic words are under the law.
This is one thing that Oklahoma Highway Patrol officers are seeing too much of. Last month, 79 people died on the state's highways, 14 more than in February of 1980. Officials say that many things contribute to a higher death rate. The weather has been unseasonably mild, so people drive more, and they're driving too fast. This year, gasoline is also easier to get at the pumps. People are using more of it.
We are driving more miles, especially in the last 2 years. 2 years ago, when gasoline was a little more scarce than what it is today, people were driving less. They were staying closer to home. Today, even though we're paying a lot more money, they're still going out onto the road and driving.
Officials say that one thing to blame for so many fatal crashes is the small car. More people are buying them, and they get great gas mileage, but they're just not the same as a big car when it comes to giving protection in a crash. Statistics also show that most people who have seatbelts aren't using them. So even if you drive a small car, you can protect yourself against a fatal crash by driving the speed limit and by buckling up before you turn the key. Jane Boone, Action 4.
Tempers flare in domestic disturbances, and police officers don't like to be caught in the middle. Some officers say investigating wife rape will put more officers in dangerous situations, and that risk may be for nothing if the wife decides later not to prosecute her husband. Officers also say they already have their hands full with forcible rape cases, and they just don't have the manpower to investigate violent wife rape, too. But Bonnie Cox of the Rape Prevention Center says wife rape can't be swept under the rug. She says raped and battered wives have been unprotected long enough.
Up to now, about the only thing, unless she's been brutally beat, it's a $35 fine. I've had clients in rape cases of a wife where he's tied her to the bed and has brutally raped her in domestic violence situation, and there is nothing can be done about it.
If the wife rape bill does become law, its ultimate success will depend upon the courts. Wives who have been raped must first of all bring the problems to the courts for justice. And secondly, the courts themselves must be open-minded enough to see that a wedding ring is no excuse for rape. Sue Lauer, Action 4 at the County Courthouse.
A seminar on agricultural policy issues was held in Stillwater today. Agricultural leaders from across the state attended the gathering at Oklahoma State University. United States Senator David Boren was one of the featured speakers.
How in the world, when you look at your margins of profits, whether you're talking about having to feed cattle, whether you're talking about planting, whatever it is you're talking about, can you afford to pay the kind of interest rates we have now and still remain in business? You just can't do it. There's no way to come out.
After his address, the senator told reporters that it is a national disgrace for us to import Soviet agricultural products.
And we're still buying agricultural products from the Soviet Union. Soviet Union is the fourth largest seller of casein, a protein milk byproduct, to the United States. They're selling us tobacco. Of course, they sell us furs. They sell us other agricultural products. Now, the amount of money involved is not large. It's a few $1 million. But to me, even $1 of agricultural products being sold by the Soviet Union to Americans is $1 too much when we're not letting our own farmers sell to the Soviets. Well, I intend during the discussion of the dairy bill, it's now on the Senate floor, it'll be back up on Tuesday for consideration, to offer an amendment that would cut off the purchase of any Soviet agricultural products as long as the grain embargo is in effect.
Senator Boren added that it's wrong for the United States to export $400 million worth of non-agricultural products to the Soviet Union while we're restricting our farmers from selling our grain to the Soviets. Ben McCain, Action 4 in Stillwater.
I was alarmed to learn that very few people really know the true significance of the Reagan administration cutbacks, including the chairman of that committee. He did inform me, however, that by the time the budget markup process is concluded, which he anticipates being somewhere towards the latter part of April, the true extent of the Reagan cutbacks will be known, but at this point in time, no one seems to know.
A viewer writes in and asks, I live in a small southwestern Oklahoma town where water is not too plentiful. When your plumbing is leaking, you have to wait for up to 2 weeks for a plumber. My neighbor can fix my leak but doesn't have a plumber's license. Is it all right to have him do it? Well, a state law known as Plumbing License Law of 1955 says that anyone who installs, alters, repairs, or renovates plumbing must have a license, which is obtained by passing an examination given by the State Committee of Plumbing Examiners. Now, performing these services without a license is a misdemeanor. Violators can be fined from $25 to $100. But your neighbor may still be able to fix your leak, because the law doesn't apply to minor repairs or replacement of faucets or other minor working parts of plumbing fixtures or sprinkler systems. Individual cities can also pass ordinances regulating plumbing services, so check your local laws as well. For Action 4, this is Ray Vaughn with Legal Briefs.
Legal services only through LSC. They have no money to hire a lawyer, and they to do it without cost.
How many low-income people on a statewide? Well, certainly we will seek funding.
And I just don't think that today any government leader ought to walk in and say, from now on, we're going to take away another right from the people that are economically disabled.
A, Constitution of the Oklahoma Democratic Party. B, Rules Committee report and form adopted. C, Robert's Rules of Order newly revised. There has been a request that individuals allowed to participate in the deliberation of this State Central Committee meeting.
For my being a little tardy, they just generally call me the late George.
Members present and voting. Rule 6.
Sometimes you have to represent your heritage. Sometimes you have to represent your thinking. Sometimes you have to represent your geographical location. Sometimes you have to represent your station in life. But overall, we have to represent what we think is the thinking of the people, of the Democrats of Oklahoma.
Small cars produced at the Oklahoma City GM plant are a strategic part of GM's battle against Japanese imports. In the past 2 years, the plant has produced 500,000 compact cars. The giant automaker is betting a bundle that the fuel-efficient front-wheel drive autos will appeal to American consumers. Some politicians are pushing for a ceiling on the number of Japanese cars sold in the U.S. A newly elected General Motors Board Chairman Roger Smith says any restrictions by the Japanese should be voluntary.
There are already, I think, 13 bills introduced in Congress that I think have the potential of starting a trade war, and it's bad. We don't want that. So I believe, and I actually think it's going to happen faster than we think, that we will see the Japanese do this, and they will do it voluntarily. It's in their best interest, too. To avoid a trade war, they're smart enough to know what it is.
As you can see, shortly after the ceremony, it's business as usual on the GM assembly line. But the GM board chairman hopes it's not business as usual in the marketplace, where lately, Japanese imports have been killing American car sales. Scott Wallace, Action 4 at the GM plant in southeast Oklahoma City.
Doug Brown's Northeast 23rd Street headquarters is buzzing for at least 12 hours a day. Brown is after voters for next Tuesday's election. The 61-year-old retiree says phone soliciting is working.
Oh, that's Miss Henderson?
Supporters.
Miss Henderson, this is Doug Brown, and I'm running for councilman in Ward 7.
The phone campaign explains Brown's
representation. And so I'll be there. See, I don't have no strings. I mean, I'm not tied to anybody. I'm my own man. I will not be a puppet to any group.
But Brown says he likes to hit the streets as much as possible, too. He says he's a community man, and there's nothing quite like selling your ideas door-to-door style. Brown says he wasn't very interested in running for the councilman position at first, but was persuaded by friends that felt he could do a good job. And he adds the response so far has been better than he expected. The former public relations officer feels the campaigning trail is leading to victory. Ed Stewart, Action 4 in Northeast Oklahoma City.
Governor Nye calls it his oil for water plan. Oil-rich counties in the West would give up some of their gross production taxes to finance a water plan for the entire state. But representatives from the oil-producing counties say the state already takes the lion's share of the production tax, and what's left over doesn't begin to fix the roads and all the other problems that come with oil production. There are other problems. Some representatives fear Nye's plan for fiscal earmarking, a trend legislators are trying to eliminate.
I am sure that as the revenue increases significantly, and I believe that it is, that we're going to have to share that revenue. I'm not ready to share it into a pre-designated fund where it may be spent without legislative approval. Now, I have a real problem with that.
Other legislators say it's unfair to take profits from one county or industry to pay the bills for someone else.
You know, this tax was developed for the purpose for helping the counties in the origin of where the production is. And of course, production is spreading over Oklahoma. I think it will be enormous. But why should one industry, why do we expect one industry to pay the entire bill for the expense of state government in the state of Oklahoma?
Legislators say the biggest problem with Governor Nye's proposal is that there are too many proposals within it. And House Speaker Dan Draper points out it's quite late in the session to introduce such controversial legislation. He doesn't see much hope for the governor's plan, at least this year. Sue Lauer, Action 4.
Depending on the circumstances, when you buy an envelope like this, it could be classified as drug paraphernalia. That if a certain bill is made into law. Legislators were out to stop the sales of items like these in the specialty or head shop, things that lawmakers feel are used to prepare and take illegal drugs with. But in the bill to ban these items, it may also be illegal to buy such common goods as blenders, because a blender used in a different kind of way can be associated with drug preparation. The definition of paraphernalia to include certain household tools has some people thinking the proposed ban may have to be more specific.
Well, I think it's a little bit ridiculous to try and outlaw every type of device or home appliance or toothpicks right on down that you could possibly use to use drugs or to make drugs or to blend drugs, and I think it's a little too much.
I think we should have another election and get some people in there who have sensible ideas.
In other words, you don't think this proposed bill is worth the paper it's written on?
Well, evidently not, if it's getting rid of most of the things that we use to cook and prepare our food.
Also on the list of possibly being banned are bowls and spoons. If passed, the bill states people who sell paraphernalia can be prosecuted as well. Similar legislation has already been approved in other states, and supporters of this proposal think the law could work here. Only then you may have to come up with a new way to sift flour. Ed Stewart, Action 4, Oklahoma City.
Suffix in the same way on the other side. And so this
this is not going to be on until Sunday.
As far as case, you have a bilge pump, but if your electricity goes out, you need some way to get the water out what's in. What I suggest to people is to get these. As a matter of fact, I wasn't aware of that. That's a new law.
The judge denied Mr. Barry's admission pro hoc vici for me to appear. I have appeared in over 39 states. We have reciprocity in New York with Oklahoma. He then stated that I had come down here solely to aid the cause and not aid the defendant. And then I said I didn't think constitutional rights were being observed here, and that this was not an American court, and he was not an American judge in doing this kind of tactic, excluding a lawyer for no reason at all.
The first thing most of us do after getting into our cars, after starting them, of course, is to turn on the radio.
To tell you about my friends out on the coast.
There's a growing number of people who feel there's no better way to get through the day than by listening to a country song. 2,097 radio stations in the United States and Canada are now programming country music. That's a 21% increase over last year. It's surprising the number of rock and roll stations that have gone to country music. 50,000-watt KOMA in Oklahoma City is one of many radio stations in America that's changed its music.
KOMA. Hello, good afternoon. This is Wade Carter here at Colma Country. I tell you what, a local boy doing well, writing a song for T.G. Shepherd. Phil Sampson down in Lawton, writing it for him.
Country music has always been a big format in America. I think the popularity that it is enjoying right now is because it's being packaged and merchandised a little differently.
Now on KABC, Keep Everybody Country, here's the #1 song of the nation, Elvis Presley.
Radio stations that play country music are enjoying a great deal of popularity. Their number of listeners is increasing daily. According to one disc jockey, it seems almost everybody is beginning to like a country song. Ben McCain, Action 4. Produced to make them sound as though they were just recorded. WKY